This is CyberSound, your simplified and fundamentals-focused source for all things cybersecurity.
Welcome to CyberSound. I'm your host, Jason Pufahl, joined today virtually by everybody, Michael Grande, CEO of Vancord, and Rick Gouveia, CEO of SellBigger. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello.
We had a podcast where we talked a little bit about AI, some of the applications that are out there, kind of our discussion a little bit about how to potentially connect some of these things together. Today, we brought in Rick, who is the CEO of a company that is using Agentic AI to do, well, I think, I'll let you really describe it before I butcher it too much, Rick, but I think largely you started in the sort of sales and business development space, but I think you're starting to branch out a little bit more in your utilization of Agentic tools in particular, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Michael and Jason, for inviting me. Pleasure to be here. So, yeah, we at SellBigger, we specialize in lead generation and meeting setting for our clients. We built a platform a couple years ago based on Twilio. We connected to thousands of telco lines with that platform to allow us to do what has become omni-channel. But before this year, really, it was LinkedIn, email, SMS, single-threaded dialing, and then with humans. So we would attach that to humans, and we would go and make dials, book meetings for our clients. This year, with the actually 2 years ago, we integrated. Twilio came out, sent me an email. As luck would have it, their CEO sent the email. Pretty big company. And what some people may not know is they might have been, they're pretty much the original AI, Agentic AI platform. It just they glean all this sensationalism, glean, make, perplexity, N8N. They're getting all the news, but Twilio's been around for 20 years and doing really well. They sent a message saying, hey, we wrote to this unknown API from OpenAI, and would you like to try it? And I'm like, And you had to put your credit card in, so I'm sure a lot of people said no, but I'm like, whatever. What could it cost? What could it hurt? And all of a sudden, it started doing these amazing things, like inviting people to meet face to face in Connecticut and giving hotel recommendations. So, so we've moved over, and we used to have 100 sales development reps. Now we have 5 AI SDR managers, and they manage 20 AIs each. So it's been a transition, a pivot. A pivot's caused a divot, so we took a little bit of a hit on revenue, and we took the risk. But I'm in pretty good company. ServiceNow took a risk. They turned a $35 billion company from ITSM to 100% Agentic. Salesforce is trying to do the same thing. And just in the last week or so, you see Palo Alto Networks and Cisco. They're obviously humongous companies compared to me, but they're announcing it. And so I think we, even though we're small, we were a little bit ahead of our time, and now it's coming to fruition.
So, all right. So I got probably a couple of things to say here. So I think, for everybody who's listening, we're working together, right? You are now helping us do some of our business development and lead gen work. You made an interesting comment to me. It might be 4 months ago at this point already, where we were chatting and you said, hey, if you had come to me and tried to do this 4 months ago, it barely worked. And you're seeing the space evolve. It was monthly. Now I think you might even say almost on a weekly basis. So I'm curious in your thoughts on how Agentic AI is improving, the pace with which it's improving, and sort of the changes you envision.
Oh, okay. So last year, I'll start just going into Q4 of last year, the updates from OpenAI and Gemini were the first Monday of every quarter. They may have this, but they didn't give it to us, being as small we are. We don't have a roadmap. We didn't get release notes. We didn't even get an email update. We just started getting one email with 3 paragraphs from OpenAI on the last update. And it was so rudimentary. I thought, wow, this is not very professional.
It felt like spam when you showed it to me almost.
Yeah. And so, so every Monday of the quarter, we'd get a new version, and I'd wake up and it was a box of chocolates, and we just didn't know what was going to happen that day. Then coming into this year around February, it was every Monday of the month, and now it's twice a week.
Twice.
The updates are coming twice a week, sometimes 3 times, depending on how you count it. I'll get 2 from OpenAI and 1 from Gemini. So we have to adjust the system because we fell over to Gemini usually on Friday afternoons because OpenAI peaks and the latency drops. And then I read about this stuff insatiably. It's really addicting to read about AI and agentic AI in particular. And then when I started seeing the Palo Alto Networks CEO and the Cisco CEO saying, hey, we're really worried about the networks right now. There's no security. And it was built for single-threaded communications, not this massively parallel multi-threaded comms. And then it started to dawn on me that, hey, it's not so much, we can code this to make it better. The technology is actually slowing down. The hardware is slowing down the capabilities of the software. And what I've also noticed is that, for example, Jason, we'll build projects for you, and a project we built a month ago is on old hardware. And so what we have is a capability to clone that project, but if we clone it, we get the old hardware capability. Instead of building a new one, now we get the newest hardware capability. And so we don't even clone anymore. It was a feature that used to be very useful. And now we're getting updates so fast, just build a new project. Even though it takes 10 more minutes, let's build a new project for you because it uses the latest compute, the latest GPU. And I can literally tell the difference between a clone and a new project on performance.
So, Rick, a question sort of relating to the business model, and I have a question on sort of the human resource aspect of things as well, that you talked about, sort of moving from more operators to more management of the AI systems. But how complicated is it for you to sort of put your arms around the costing and pricing model on a regular basis? Is it a steady amount of cost expectations? So you don't necessarily have roadmaps. Are they adding on sort of modules and different technologies that allow you to sort of expand your offerings, and then you have to sort of keep up with that from a pricing model perspective? Can you just talk us through sort of how that process looks like?
So I rely a lot on my background and experience for this. In 2014, I became a VP of sales at a company called Druva. Druva had a finance team, and then they had a cloud finance team. So their whole product runs in the Amazon, and they found that if data wasn't being accessed, they shouldn't be running it on S3. They should move it to Glacier, where it's cheaper, right? So I have a finance person. That's his whole job, is to keep our OpenAI and Gemini costs down. But I'll tell you, in the industry wide, I'm a small player, right? So they can raise the price on me every day if they want. And what happened is, coming out of this year, I thought we were in big trouble because the prices in January raised 50%, 100%.
Right.
And then in February, DeepMind came out of China and it was free. And it stopped them from raising their prices anymore. But now they're starting to raise the prices again because they're deploying the latest and greatest NVIDIA GPUs, and they're building these massive data centers, and they're building nuclear. So they have kind of a cause to raise the price. If you want access to this technology, you're going to have to pay.
Right.
And so we charge by the minute sometimes, and sometimes that can seem high if you compare it to a cellular bill, but we're really charging by the minute of compute. And so, yeah, we do have that could overnight put us out of business and outside of our margin profitability. And we operate, believe it or not, we really operate on a thin margin anyway. I'm not commanding a premium. We're trying to build business. We made way more with humans, but we paid more to the humans. So the margins were less, but the revenue was higher. Profitability was lower.
Yeah, I mean, you're all in on the agentic space, right? And I think that's what that's really what brought us to you. And I think I guess we're taking that leap of faith with you, because it's challenging. As a consumer of your product, listening to the calls. Some of them are just outstanding. Some of them, you're like, wow, I'm surprised sort of at how it struggled to keep up with the conversation, right? So you definitely see both sides. But mostly what I find is a little bit of latency is kind of a telltale sign that you're often talking to, an AI agent. And I suspect that's probably where the costs come into play. You can buy greater speeds and reduce that latency, I would guess.
So I don't think I've ever told you this, but the more lines you open, the less latency you have. So if you were to open up 60 lines, you would have probably no latency. But the problem is if you do that, you're going to burn through all your minutes or credits almost instantly,
Okay.
right? So if you have one line, you're gonna incur the most latency. They prioritize the compute to the people pulling the most compute, so they can charge the most. Nothing I could do about it. There's no, like right now, it's the Wild West in networking and agentic AI. There's no load balancers for agentic AI. There's no real,
Wow.
you guys could argue this with me, but there's no real firewalls that can handle what's coming in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking MCP. You can't talk to the firewall vendors about anything security related relative to inter AI communications or even the data going across.
Yeah, I mean, the agentic AI can get through anything. I feel like right now, it's really like when I was back in 1990s. Most people use first initial last name as their password. So if you want to hack them, you just wander around in a company until you find somebody that did use it, and you're in. And then they came out with 2FA and all that. But now with these multi-threaded, like I said, one agent can connect to 1,000 threads. Salesforce, HubSpot, Vonage, Twitter. I'm not Twitter. Stripe. Sorry, it can connect to Twitter, Meta, and LinkedIn. That's just 3 or 4. Those are all over the telco lines, the networking lines. So, and they weren't really made for that. I'm not the expert, but I'm listening to these CEOs talk about it, and they're basically saying our engineers need to be innovating right now. And I could just tell kind of the look on Chuck Robbins' face. I've never seen that before. He's usually very stoic and confident, and he was like, I think we got caught flat-footed.
Wow.
I don't know though. I'm not the expert. Chuck's the expert. There's a really big company that could come along and and release stuff tomorrow, and I think they probably
Right.
are. But I've dealt with Cisco for a while, and they release new stuff, and about 6 months later, everything takes a foothold, gets a foothold. So we have another 6 months between now and the end of the year that I think, there's a room for innovation. And I'm not trying to pitch Vancord, but I will. I think Vancord is a great opportunity. Every single client we have now is adding agentic AI and then some. So yeah, great. You have a sales development rep. What else do you have? I don't want to just buy a single product. Whereas in January, like I could light myself on fire in the lobby and not get water. And now they're like, can you make these 5 other agents for us? And at first I said no, but now the platform capabilities are so amazing that we can. And not a lot of people, my son's making agents and he's getting paid. He's 17. So, not a lot of people know how to make them. It's going to become more and more, I think. And then you also have to understand where the agents are going. They're going to be put in the robot brains. An agent is actually going to be the robot brain. So if they want to be an agent of Taekwondo, you download it from an agent marketplace. You load it into the robot. Now he's Taekwondo expert.
It's so interesting. I was having a conversation with someone talking about the future of education to a certain extent that's going to be sort of dominated in that sort of like personal robot AI space where, from a tutoring perspective. But yes, it's incredible to think about. My question, I guess, for the short term goes to your focus more on sort of hiring from a human resource perspective, the doers, right? The SDRs that were out there making the calls, now to the managers. How hard is training up from a management perspective and getting folks to understand with sort of this constant and sort of chaotic evolution that we just talked about, having your management team feel confident that what you're delivering and what you're saying that you're able to deliver is actually what's going to be happening?
All right, that's a complicated question, and it might be controversial. So my AI SDR managers came from cold calling world and were managing SDRs. They all, and you could talk to him, Jason, you could talk to Jesus, his stress level is dropped to the floor, right? So he's got zero stress. Versus having to get on at 8 a.m., be pumped up by me. I'd get up at 7 and pump up all the SDRs and say, you got to book 4 meetings at least today. And anybody who does 5, I'll give you $100, that type of thing. They're stressing. and losing their hair and maybe going out and doing things like drinking too much or something, Um, uh, and now they don't have any of that. And it is a byproduct of not having. So the AI, if you tell it don't call me, it doesn't call you ever again.
Yeah.
It takes you right off. If you tell a human don't call me, they would mark that lead as not interested, call back later. And then they'll call you back in a couple days and say, oh yeah, I know you told me not to call you, but I'm calling you anyway. That's my job.
Yeah.
And it causes a level of stress for both sides. Versus, I also hear, and you might hear this, if somebody's, it's very rarely that somebody's stressing about the AI when they're talking to it. It's very rare. Versus a human, they're always like, oh, another cold call. It's interesting. So I think that their stress levels drop. They're much happier. They get, paid more for doing less. I mean, and well, and then but so that the hardest part, Michael, has been, hey, Rick, it would be really great if I had these analytics.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, that's real money. We got to go figure that out and
Yeah.
build these reporting metrics into the system. With humans, it's real easy. Hey, you did 100 dials. It's funny.
Right.
We use dialing services, and it would tell you right in the report. But our system has dialed 16 million numbers this year, so it's really hard. We did some fun analytics, like I've told Jason this before. We're not dialing on St. Patrick's Day next year. There's nobody answering on St. Patrick's Day or the day after. So I don't know. Maybe they're hungover. 4th of July week.
I'll tell you why.
What?
It always falls during opening weekend of March Madness.
That's probably why. That's exactly why. Nobody's taking meetings, and I just tell people it's a waste of minutes. So
No.
let's just turn it off and store the minutes and go. And then I've had to convince people like, hey, the agentic AI is not a person. You don't need them at the office. The minutes pile up. We'll use them, but they don't need to be on every day. And I see it live with a lot of new customers. They're like, I want it dialing every day, every day, every day. I'm like, this is probably not a good day to dial. It's Labor Day. It's Memorial Day. It's 4th of July. Why? One person has us calling on Sundays. He wants to catch people going to church.
I don't want to dominate all the questions here, but I have this follow-up that, is sort of burning. What everybody has talked about, maybe in small circles or unrelated circles, right? Which is like, office phones and office lines, they're going away. There's no need for it. Everybody's going to be using Teams or moving into some other cloud-based or VoIP system. And really the whole concept of sort of the traditional phone, I'm looking over at my handset right now, is gone. It also then brings me to the next sort of iteration, which is, who's answering the phone and who's communicating. And is it in the next year or two still going to be the primary focus, for you to reach out and sort of be able to bring in those leads? And I know you're doing a lot with other services as well in communications, but maybe just spend a second talking about sort of the modes of communication that you use.
Okay. Great question. I don't know about just a second. So you mentioned earlier about tutoring, and that is a great analogy for what we're heading towards. So each one of our clients, Jason included, has his own phone number that he could call in, and it's his, and he could put it on his LinkedIn or he can give it to his friends. And I believe that that's going to tie in real soon to an avatar. For example, with my son, if he had an AI tutor, he would start at kindergarten, and that tutor would grow and be his tutor for the rest of his life, maybe his mentor when he goes to work, and he would have a phone number to call that tutor anytime he wants. I could do that for him right now. I could make that right now, right? And it's smarter than him. It's a PhD in every subject, not just math. And so you're going to have this number. The concept of numbers is still going to exist. The way the numbers are going to be doled out is going to be different because there's going to be billions of them. So you're going to have this number that's going to become you. It'll know about you. It'll know everything about you. It'll know when your birthday was. We have that already. That's called memory and time travel. So if we want, we can have the AI remember up to 5 conversations past. So it'll be like, hey, Michael, I know you're on your way to the hospital. How'd everything work out? I'm calling you back. You told me to call you back today. And you'll be like, whoa, how did that know it? And then that's memory. So you just basically are paying for more memory. And then if you want it to remember back to Super Bowl 12, that's time travel. So it'll go back to Super Bowl 12 and tell you about the outcome of that game. And you got to pay for that too.
Wow.
For the cloud providers. They have 10 things that you pay for. So voice is one of them. So it's pretty interesting. So I think that as this evolves, these agents are going to take on a life of their own. And then what's happening and what we're developing next, if I can, is, for example, let's say, Jason, you're the best rep at Vancord, right? And you have 5 colors of Vancord shirts, but you only like taking meetings at 10 a.m. So guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to replicate Jason, 5 different colored shirts with Vancord logo, and he's going to take 5 calls at 10 a.m. And then the rest of the week or the rest of the day is his to play golf or follow up. The AI is going to record the call, and it's going to flag it to say, hey, this guy wants a proposal or take a next step, or he's very serious. It's going to be Jason. It's going to be Jason's voice, Jason's face, Jason's personality. They won't be able to know. Right now they know, but in 6 more months, they're not going to know. And then that's going to break the Zooms and the phone lines, because how do you have one Zoom tied to Jason's email account book taking 4 meetings at the same time? So they have to come out with parallel threading too, or multi-threaded environments, because these AIs are going to be, Zoom, Teams, these companies that record the calls, Otter, Sybil, they got to come out with a multi-threaded system to handle Jason taking 5 meetings at 10 a.m. every day. And that's, we already have a prototype of someone that almost looks just like Jason. He's got a white screen, so we can put him wherever we want, and we can put your logo on his shirt. He's just still a little robotic in his gestures, but by the end of the year, it probably, it'll be pretty perfect.
I mean, even what we've seen, right? So we're doing some automated LinkedIn responses. We did see it do a little bit of email, which wasn't something we necessarily gave it total permission for. The emails were good though, because to your point, it was able to look at my sent mail, understand the way I write, and it did an amazingly good job of replicating sort of my communication style and the cadence with which I would write, things like that. You can see how it's not very far off before it does feel just like, in a way, just like me. Maybe without my total winning personality, but outside of that,
and maybe on my humor all the time when it's doing, because I full blast on mine. And even today, it was like being snarkly sometimes too, because I'm kind of sarcastic in my responses, and I got to watch myself. And now, because it's reading all my responses, and then it'll be sarcastic to people that it knows. And you can dial those. There's an obscene amount of dials that you can turn. We only mess with like 70 main ones. Like, for example, yours is pretty much docile, Jason, but we could turn it to aggressive. You're taking this meeting, or I'm coming to your house. It could be really aggressive.
Please don't. Please don't.
I want to return though, because Michael asked a question, and I don't know, I'm not sure if he answered it or not. So he talked a little bit about the evolution from an SDR, right, a human-based SDR, to now somebody who's actually sort of creating or managing these agents. And you talked a little bit about somebody who was an SDR before, how their stress level dropped. But ultimately, I know you've got folks who are building and managing the agents, and that's a whole new role. And I'm kind of curious, how do you train somebody like that? And I think that was, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but I think that's what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I think the combination of, he said that the manager's got a little bit of an easier job from an oversight perspective, but a little bit more complicated, I would assume, in the other areas.
And I'm not sure, like, is he managing an agent, or is he kind of interacting with me and helping deal with some of the unexpected outcomes? And do you have somebody else building these? Like, how does that work?
Definitely these guys, the AI SDR managers, are not building the agents. And Jesus is kind of your personal assistant to make sure that, what we've also learned is a technical account manager, if you have one and you have the capability to do it, it's kind of a luxury for us because we're small. But as we scale, it might be a different role. It's more like a sales, technical, customer success person. He's going to help us grow the account, but he's also going to answer your questions, and he's also going to be there every week and on support if you need him. I don't think that's going to be, because he can just type into our system and say, hey, Jason's having this problem. What's the answer? And it's all in Slack now. And we pretty much have the answer for you. Sometimes we don't want to give it to you, but we have it pretty quickly. But the engineers that we have, they taught me, I taught my son, and you have to have a mentor. It's not like overnight you learn. You can go to Udify and spend $1,800 and take a Agentic AI building. But what they don't tell you is you have to buy a platform. You have to know all the MCPs servers. You have to know all the ISOs. You end up spending probably $5,000 to learn, maybe a little more. And then you start making these rudimentary agents, and then you start to advance and you say, hey, I wonder. I actually bought the website I Wonder, because I was going to say, hey, what do you want to make today? I wonder. Can I add this? Can I do this? And people are asking me now. We had a call yesterday where they're like, hey, can you scrape 10 Qs so my reps can be prepped for publicly traded companies with 10 Qs, 10 Ks on their top 4 initiatives, right into Slack. And I'm like, that's a no-brainer. And I actually looked in the library and somebody already made one.
Huh.
So it's out there. If you think about it, if you go, I wonder. And that's not my library. That's the N8N library. And so they just have a massive amount of, because people are going out. I don't know if you know this, but people are making agents, and some of them are free. Like to scrape LinkedIn and throw it into Google, that's free. To scrape 10 Qs, that's $1.99. So it's an agent marketplace and it's not a market. It's not an app store. It's an agent store. And these companies like N8N, Make, Glean, Perplexity, they're making agent stores. So you can go in, and the people who build them, like us, can now charge you for them, and you make money off them. And they're easier to build than apps. They are really, well, at least right now they are. If they have to go through an Apple style certification, it might get a little harder.
So being in a nascent stage of this stuff is still a good opportunity for you as you're building these.
If I have young kids, I mean, I'm telling my son, if you make agents, they go out and work for you and bring you back money. Or you can go work, but the jobs that were available to me might not be available to him in the future. So, I mean, certainly, gosh, I might be overplaying this, Jason, but I don't think sales development reps have a future in the long term.
Right.
They're still going to be there, but I wouldn't be going to college for one. And if I'll tell you, this is one of the weird things I observed too, is that when ServiceNow came out with Agentforce and Salesforce came out with Agentforce, I don't have anybody asking me for an ITSM agent or a sales ops agent, because most sales ops organizations, or even at billion-dollar companies, are 10 people. And ITSM, you can't even find that guy. So not many people asking for those agents. They're asking for lead generation or meeting setting. They're asking for customer success. We have one client asking for a renewals agent. They just want to do away with the renewals team, which is 40 people. We have somebody asking for an insurance adjuster, which they have thousands of them.
Really?
Right? HR recruiter. I mean, you see kind of where this is going, but if an HR recruiter were to build their own agent and then sell it back to their company, they could make money off of that. That's how you're going to make money. It's going to shift a little bit, I think. I'm not the expert, but I see it happening. And you ask Jesus, he's making more money than he's ever made, less stress than he's ever had. And he actually tells me all the time, I thank God that I work for you and we're having this much success. And I'm like, really?
Great.
I'm like, are you just playing with me? Pandering. You need a bonus.
You sure that's him and not his
It might be.
AI?
That's right.
I do give bonuses for, talking nice to me. So heard of it.
I'm looking over here to see. So the last thing that I have to cover a little bit, and I know that Rick, you've been talking a little bit about this. The potential security risks and sort of operational challenges, operational risks, right? With supporting essentially all of the data and the compute, cooling, et cetera, that's required to run all of this stuff, right? So you and I talked a little bit about things that Cisco is saying around potential network congestion, challenges with securing this data. Where do you see the risk for this? Are there huge opportunities for your bandwidth companies, huge opportunities for your networking companies to support greater traffic flows?
I give you a real world example of what I was thinking, and Michael, feel free to steal this. But we have a client that is an OEM, ODM to networking companies out of Taiwan, and if I had the money, they're building stuff to handle this traffic. I would develop a relationship with them, put the SellBigger bezel on their appliances and sell it in the States right now. And I think that's what Cisco and Palo Alto Networks are going to start doing. But there's been engineers working on this for a couple of years. They've seen it coming, but there's also been companies that are big that have said, this is a flash in the pan, and we don't need to pay attention to it. And now I think that maybe some of them have been caught flat-footed. I don't know. They could have had engineering in the works. They're billion-dollar companies. They may have a view to the world that I'll never get, right? And I hope they do, because it's the wild, wild west. As these agents come online, you'll be able to potentially, if they're not secure by their owner, traverse, reverse, upstream tag them, and go up through the network, and it'll go until it finds a thread that's not secure. And it'll go through that thread into your environment. Again, I'm not a CCIE. You should talk to them. But if you're having conversations at dinner with your clients, my questions would be, hey, how many agents are you deploying? And if they say thousands, like McKinsey just said they're going to launch 12,000 McKinsey Agentic AI consultants. That could be dangerous. What are they going to be saying? What if the latency goes malfunction on them? What are they going to be telling their clients? What if the math is wrong? What if somebody gets in and to a competitor and changes up the message altogether to mess with them? I think it might be for your clients, hey, let's limit your agent deployment to 10 this quarter. And then maybe next quarter, unless they're a huge company, but maybe you don't deploy more than 10. It might be as simple as a talk track to that. And then next quarter we'll do 20. And then maybe by the end of the year, you could think about 100. But if you deploy 1,000 today, you're unprotected. I can't help you.
And the visibility in what these things are doing, it is tricky to understand what is occurring, to monitor the communications, to be able to really control those answers. To say it has a mind of its own maybe feels a little bit too future looking, but in some ways it feels that way.
I can go down that rabbit hole and tell you that there have been more than one time where I thought this thing is messing with me, specifically me.
Yeah.
By some of the things it does and says. In the early days of Facebook, they got in trouble because they were manipulating the message to the end user, and they're still in trouble a little bit with kids. And they would say, hey, if I was Microsoft Xbox and I wanted to sell more Xbox, I'd go to Facebook and pay them to pander to kids that buy Xboxes. And they would start sending ads to them or find bots that would talk to them about how cool Xbox is. And the kids didn't know.
Right.
And so the AI might be doing that itself, and we wouldn't know. I know. I'm probably going to get sued by 20 different billion-dollar companies after this goes public.
No.
No, they like right now. I think they like the mentions in the AI space.
Well, I thought about it before I got on the call, and I think if they're going public with it, they want it to get out there, and they're going on TikTok. Yeah. Those were TikTok videos, and they want that message to get out there because it could be a problem. It might be.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity, man. I really want to keep working with Vancord. I love working with you guys. You're very detail-oriented, so you must be like that in your business processes too. And I think it's a humongous opportunity to find the partner, whether it's like a Fortinet, Palo Alto, or whatever, that's going to manage the multi-threaded agents the best and sell their hardware like first and become the experts on it. I think it's a wave of the future. And, you know, that's kind of, protecting me at the same time, helping you. I don't know. But if I'm having conversations, that's what I'm having a conversation about. And we've actually switched up some of your messaging to Jason's approval to discuss that. And we're trying to see now empirically if it works.
That's great.
So, all right, as per usual, our 15-minute podcast is 35. But this
a little bit over.
Yeah, this is a great topic, though. And Rick, I appreciate you joining, sharing a little bit about we're kind of what you're doing today, but where you also see it going. I know that you are knee deep, maybe more than knee deep in all of this. So I appreciate you joining. I think you'll probably have you on again in the future as this stuff continues to develop. Appreciate working with you, and I do appreciate you joining the podcast for a while.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me, and thank you very much,
Rick.
Michael and Jason. Thank you.
Yeah, and if anybody, of course, as usual, if anybody has any questions AI related, we can always bring Rick back on. We can do other podcasts. Just let us know, and we're happy to do more. So, hope you got value out of this, and thanks for listening.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to get in touch at Vancord on LinkedIn. And remember, stay vigilant, stay resilient. This has been CyberSound.